So did having all that money and free help calm the white people down? No way. They got even more afraid. That's because after 200 years of slavery, the black people now outnumbered the white people in many parts of the South. Well, you can pretty much guess what came next. The slaves started rebelling. There were uprisings, and old Master's head got chopped off. And when white people heard of this, they were freaking out and going, I want to live. Don't kill me, big black man. Well, just in the nick of time came Samuel Colt, who in 1836 invented the first weapon ever that could be fired over and over without having to reload. And all the Southern whites were like, yeehaw! But it was too late. The North soon won the Civil War and the slaves were freed. Yep, they were free now to go chop all the old masters' heads off. And everybody was like, oh no, we're gonna die. But the freed slaves took no revenge. They just wanted to live in peace. But you couldn't convince the white people of this. So they formed the Ku Klux Klan. And in 1871, the same year the Klan became an illegal terrorist organization, another group was founded, the National Rifle Association. Soon politicians passed one of the first gun laws, making it illegal for any black person to own one. It was a great year for America, the KKK and the NRA. Of course, they had nothing to do with each other, and this was just a coincidence. One group legally promoted responsible gun ownership, and the other group shot and lynched black people. And that's the way it was all the way to 1955, when a black woman broke the law by refusing to move to the back of the bus. White people just couldn't believe it. Huh? Why won't she move? What's going on? Man, all hell broke loose. Black people everywhere started demanding their rights, and white people had a major freaky field meltdown. And they were all like, run away! Run away! And they did. They all ran fleeing to the suburbs where it was all white and safe and clean. And they went out and bought 250 million guns and put locks on the doors, alarms in the houses, and gates around the neighborhoods. And finally, they were all safe and secure and snug as a bug. And everyone lived happily ever after.
It's quite hard to believe that not so long ago in recent history, racism was a major issue presenting itself in America and abroad. The lawmakers of history were also blatantly prejudiced towards women, as women also had no rights. It was a long struggle for women, through protest and fighting diligently with the government, to be able to have equal rights like men. This is almost unthinkable today, but to those who are still alive, to talk about these struggles for civil rights, it is as real as this documentary you are watching. Why was our previous system like this? What were the reasons for these rules to be in place to begin with? One very important similarity to point out is the fact that Freemasonry is considered an all-man's club. Although there are a few orders of women Freemasons that exist today, these were not active during previous centuries, and if they were, there is very little known about them today. Likewise, the founding members of the Ku Klux Klan were Freemasons, the most important of these being Albert Pike, a very key figure in early American history, who was a high-ranking Freemason and was one of the conspirators involved with the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, who freed the slaves and was making moves to end the hold that the banking cartel had on the Union during the Civil War. A common Freemason hand gesture is called the claw, where a Mason puts his hand over his heart under his jacket in a claw-like formation, which indicates the fact that they will not speak or deceive the secrets of the Masonic Brotherhood. A later image of Abraham Lincoln depicts two Freemasons on each side of him, making this gesture. Soon after this photograph was taken, he was killed, and all of the conspirators received promotions and rewards, both in the Masonic Lodge and in government. It's because of reasons like this that they remain so elusive and secretive. Now, before you go out looking for the nearest Masonic Lodge in your area with a Molotov cocktail or fertilizer bomb, it's crucial that I point out that not all Masons are aware of what the organization represents, or even some of the facts that I'm pointing out to you in this documentary. This is due to the simple fact that it's a technique that's been put in place which have caused them to elude detection, and the system in which Freemasonry is run is similar to that of a job. You have to earn your way up and study many things in order to advance up the levels of various degrees. Most Freemasons are what are commonly known as Blue Lodgers, which is the first 3 degrees of the craft. Often Freemasons are fine with remaining in the Blue Lodge as it fulfills their business and personal needs on a local level. If you live in North America, you can almost certainly find a Masonic Lodge in or near your city, as I will explain that these people have founded all cities that are notable on this continent. the Freemasons start to find cities and implement the government and financial systems required to base a community from. If you have a hard time believing this, just take a look around your own city. Nearly all of the old historical buildings are named after founding Freemasons, and all of the streets are named after people's last names. Why do you think this is? When you investigate a common Freemason's family background, they are nearly always related in some way to royal blood or powerful people throughout history. The secrets and advancements are passed on from generation to generation, and if you look throughout history, and even a couple Hollywood movies were made about this, the Freemasons have infiltrated the church. Priests and reverends all over the world belong to Freemasonic groups and lodges, and are put in place to further guard the true secrets of history which the public is not aware of. Only Freemasons are privy to this information, which is only given from years of dedication, studying, and testing done through the lodge. This system is set up like a pyramid, and is also responsible for maintaining the city's laws and economic infrastructures. For instance, have you ever noticed that the Lady of Justice is wearing a blindfold? The reasons for this observable symbolism is because she is not allowed to witness the actual events taking place when laws are being passed or implemented, or the corruption that takes place involving all of the parties acting in the courtroom. A Freemason, unless witnessed or caught by a non-Mason, will never be charged or found guilty of any crime, for the simple fact that everyone involved in the court systems are a Mason themselves or have the power to control individual cases from every aspect. Everyone, from the heads of media companies to the judges ruling cases, to the chief of police, to the owners of each city's largest resource manufacturers and businesses, are Freemasons. And a rule in the craft is that you will never turn on a brother or tell the secrets if you know. This is why you will see much Masonic gesturing going on undercover during trials, and this also explains why the scale of justice in which the Lady of Justice carries is always leaned to one side, indicating decisions favored in one direction, all under the presence of a blind and unseeing eye. This is a very serious aspect to point out, because many people have served jail time for crimes they didn't commit, like in the instance of the Malcolm X assassination. All the while, the true evil that should be held responsible is free, literally a free Mason. It is to my belief that this is why they are called this and have throughout history. Now, stepping back for a moment, Malcolm X was perhaps one of the greatest speakers, who at the time was trying to free black people from racial segregation as his father was killed by a Freemason, a member of the Ku Klux Klan. The FBI had created a program to infiltrate black groups called COINTELPRO. This program was administered by none other than J. Edgar Hoover, who was a 33rd degree Freemason and had links to the Ku Klux Klan. Several attempts were made on Malcolm's life. At the time, when he was alive, he did not understand too much about Freemasonry. However, he did understand full well that there was a much larger force behind everything that was happening and is currently happening around the world today. If we take a trip back in time to the middle of the century, violence and oppression against African Americans was so severe, some of the first street gangs in Los Angeles were formed to have a group of militant force to be the police for the black people. Police would do nothing to help stop the racism-based violence and cruelty, so street gangs ready to go to any lengths to protect themselves were formed as an only solution. Of course, when these groups would retaliate, they would end up on Hoover's most wanted lists, and of course, the news and media would portray any form of protest or action as terrorism, calling them savages and out of control. Malcolm chose to replace the letter X with his original last name of Littles because that name was given to him by his family's slave masters. He felt it was a strong statement depicting the fact that black communities had lost their true African heritage, beliefs, and were also renamed by their masters. The evident history of racism is so apparent in the American timeline that its entire economy was based and owes credit to the European slave trade. Human beings with families and souls, emotions and wisdom, treated like livestock and abused to the most unthinkable extents. As we now know, our birth certificates are actually registered as stock on the world stock market. The word livestock takes on a shocking new meaning. Upon further investigation, it would seem that nearly everyone in North America are now forced to work for people who do very little and get rich very fast from our labors and occupation. There is yet another word with a much more symbolic meaning: occupation. This must mean an event or object which occupies the majority of our time, taking away valuable and precious years off from every living human being under a government system. It occupies us from raising our children right and learning about the vast secrets of life that are just waiting to be discovered. Malcolm's speeches were very powerful, and when I watch him speak, thinking about what African Americans were faced with and up against at the time, it moves me in a way that most do not. It would almost seem that what he was saying bears truth to even our current global situation. A prophet perhaps in ways, and if we listen to him speak today, you should get a good idea as to what I'm talking about. From my perspective, since I am not African American, I relate his struggle in words to the entirety of the human race, and when he says the word Negro, I replace it with the word human beings in my own mind. Upon doing so, his speeches take on a whole new meaning, and it would seem that it relates to the current global events happening still today.
Minister Malcolm, you have suggested that there are all kinds of movements in Harlem growing that you and I don't know about?
Oh, yes. Frustration itself has been sufficient, all that was necessary to make Negroes realize the importance of banding together. And Negroes are banding together.
Banding together in what kind of movements?
Different kinds of movements, all kinds of movements, and they remain almost invisible. They remain almost unknown, but yet they are there. When I say invisible, I mean invisible in the sense that their existence is unknown, and no matter how much you try and track them down, you can't find them.
And this frightened many interests in this country. Many people in this country who want to see us the minority and who don't want to see us taking too militant or too uncompromising a stand are absolutely against the successful regrouping or organizing of any faction in this country whose thought and whose thinking pattern is international rather than national. There's a worldwide revolution going on. It goes beyond Mississippi. It goes beyond Alabama. It goes beyond Harlem. What is it revolting against? The power structure. The American power structure? No. The French power structure? No. The English power structure? No. Then what power structure? An international Western power structure.
Wherein all the power used to be centered in Europe, it's not centered in Europe anymore. It has divided itself up and is centered in different parts of this earth today. Much of it is in Asia. Much of it is in Africa. It has shifted. And as the people in Africa and Asia get some power of their own, they get a mind of their own. They start seeing with their own eyes and listening with their own ears and speaking with their own mouth and coming to definitions from their own brain.
The heat of this racism escalated shortly after Malik Shabazz, Malcolm's later chosen name, was murdered, and an individual regarded as a respected leader was lost to the violence of the government and its intelligence agencies. It is crucial to discuss this subject, because in what would become the only modern revolution to happen on American soil, or even North America as a whole for that matter, these people had enough, and when a large community bands together to demand its rightful freedoms, things can get really destructive. But as John F. Kennedy once said, who was also assassinated by the Central Intelligence Agency, "Those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable."
And then they brought in 16,000 National Guard who don't know the terrain.
The National Guard in particular is not necessarily trained to engage in civilian crowd control.
We wanted to drive them out. And so the question then is, what do we do?
And we were opportunistic fighters. We didn't need stockpiles. We got dilapidated buildings. Here's a brick pile just waiting to be thrown at your ass. Here's a dilapidated building. Ain't nobody living there. You didn't fix it. You didn't remove it. Okay, it ain't no but a pile of bricks anyhow. That's coming at you. That whole building, brick by brick, is coming at your ass. That's what we throwing at you. The building, the bullshit, the rubble. The rubbish that we live in, that's what's coming at your ass. Those are our weapons. The filth, the funk, the shit you can't stand, that you defend, that you put a barrier between us and yourself. That's coming at you. It's coming at you.